first M57. Probably be the first and the last, because I doubt anyone else is going to do this to a Model A, but I honestly don't care. I'd rather have it on the road than having it in a garage somewhere like, oh, it's a very rare old car. Yeah, probably going to wreck it by putting a diesel lump in. Also don't care. It's my money and I want to go full sends with it. So job's a good one. Let's see if this bad boy goes in. So, another day, another load of swearing, and another kind of stretch on this bad boy. So, steel's arrived with a heavy 140 quid, which is cheap, I think, considering everything's so expensive at the minute. Steel being one of them, but obviously 140 quid in a frame's not too bad at all. 7.5 metre length of this bad boy. So it is 100mm by 40mm box section and a 4mm wall. Now, I normally go for a 3mm wall with bigger box section, but obviously I'm reducing the size of the box, so it's kind of makes sense to go up a millimetre on the wall. So it's big and beefy. It's all kind of V'd, and I'm going to be TIG welding it, obviously filling the root and going around with TIG weld. Now, I could MIG it, but I'd rather just TIG it, to be honest. And now to the basis of designs, because it needs to be a pattern frame. Now, there are going to be some very slight deviations, but nothing kind of to write home about. Obviously it's going to be boxed, whereas the original Model A isn't. However, my Model A was boxed, so I'm just literally copying it. And I've also now trying to work out the kink, and I don't mean that as in a sexy way, like it's something kinky. I mean, there is a kink in this frame purposely on a Model A. So from the centre line, from what this piece of paper tells me, I've got to measure back 49.5 inches. And then that's where I've got to put a bend in the steel section itself. Now, I'm doing this at home, so it's going to be a case of chopping kind of a line out with the angle grinder and then trying to manually bend it as much as I can and try and replicate that kink that's on it. Shouldn't be too hard, but obviously it is a good bit of steel. So yeah, I don't know kind of how bad that's going to be, but got to do that with both sides. And then what I can do is I start marking out where my holes are for kind of the frame mounts and stuff. So it is going to be replicating a Model A chassis, just with a few minor tweaks that are going to make it a bit better, hopefully. But yeah, so going to crack on now. Going to carry on welding what I need to weld, and yeah, hopefully I should have a fairly sexy, properly welded, fully boxed Model A frame. I've got some little modifications of the way I'm going to be passing kind of brake lines through. So if you can see on here, I've basically machined up some tube stock 3mm wall. I've drilled out through the frame, and then these go through and get welded up, which then means I can bring my brake lines on the inside of the rail and then pass it through here to the outside to the front kind of flexi area for the front brakes. And then also, because it's a fully boxed section, I've done the similar thing, as you can see down here, where you've got the holes in this section here, and those basically pick up the cap mounts. So, a few days welding, hence why I'm covered in absolute muck. We've got the chassis basically pretty much done. There's a brace that needs cutting out. It's coming upside down because I'm welding some kind of chassis notches here for the steering rack, because I'm lowering the front end down, so pushing the cross member up, and also because of the type of frame that I'm doing. Instead of it kind of getting narrower near the front, I kind of want it as strong as possible because where I'm making the join, so it's 4" all the way. So I've just got to do a very slight notch, which I've done, TIG welded, whatnot. So I thought, oh brilliant, I'll tidy the garage up. Now I'd always assumed, I hadn't looked into it too much, but I kind of always assumed that the rear axle was bought welded. Now the problem is, the same guy that's welded all the rubbish on the frame has annoyingly welded the rear kind of hairpin brackets. Great! So it means I've got to rewire all the axle tubes as well. So yeah, I'm going to cut that off 4-link kit. Moved the pipe and it just broke that clean off, so yeah. The original suspension setup was poo. There's no getting around that. I thought it was going to be alright. Chucked it on. Kind of realised that the axle brackets were put on twisted, not correct. Welded by the same quality of welds as the rest of the original frame. So, rather than kind of trying to correct that and still running a hairpin setup, you may be able to see that I have welded in a extra cross member. Now I've made that up, that's kind of the chassis side cross member for a 4-link setup. So I'm going to remove the triangulated hairpin, get rid of that. I am going to leave the axle brackets on because I haven't really got time to kind of cut those off. So I'm going to leave the badly welded brackets on, but they're not actually going to be attached to anything. I've made my own 4-link brackets, which if you bear with me I will show you here. Which are these. So they're laser cut. I bought the laser outers just because I'm kind of like in a real time frame rush, and then obviously they arrived and I've spaced them correctly, TIG welded them, and those are the axle brackets that are going to sit on my actual axle. So you need to make the links then between the two. So you've got a bar that will come from this point to the back, and it's a much better setup. So you have 4 bars which will be adjustable, so you can adjust the axle pinion angle. If you need to, you can also move for tracking purposes and stuff. You can move the axle backwards and forwards, and then obviously adjusting one side of the 4-link to the other, you can kind of twist the axle each way. So obviously you can set up the suspension really well, which is good if there are any kind of very minor errors on the, or even major errors on the chassis itself. You can kind of correct everything so at least all 4 wheels are running straight. So that's that. And this is the 4-links that I'm building at the moment. So again, it's a case of CDS tube and parts that I've bought which are machined for 1/2" rose joints. So it's going to be a case now of I've cut the tubes, squared them all up, made sure all these end bits are in square, and then I'm just going to TIG weld all the way around. The reason for not using these axle brackets is because of the same guy that's welded all the frame, and obviously the tabs on the axle has done the kind of the main structural 4-link pickup, or the hairpin, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's been welded really badly around there, I know already, and filled and then painted over the top. You'll see by this bracket I pulled off, the filler, and you'll be able to see that that's not actually welded onto this frame. So as you can see there, zero penetration for me to lift this whole bit off. Wrong hammer, obviously. But as you'll see there, that has not stuck to that. Now there's a little bit that has, a very, very minor bit. So I'm just going to chip away at it. Obviously you'll see the filler come out. Yeah, for a whole bracket, it should be welded all the way around. I can just chip loads of it off. So yeah, I'm going to grind it back. You'll see how thick the filler is. Going to grind it back, clean this bit off. I'm going to re-weld what I need to re-weld. Debating removing these because I don't need to remove them. I don't need to use them. I'm obviously not going to use them. But at the same time, they're not kind of in the way. And I think to plasma cut, kind of cut it all out, it's probably introducing a lot of heat and stress into the axle tube. So I'm debating kind of just leaving these on. Also, I'm going to clean this up. Weld on my 4-links, which are somewhere here. Weld on new 4-link sections. I'll get a nice good proper weld on those. And then yeah, I'm going to have to re-weld the axle bit where the shock mounts onto. So if you see this point here, because again, the same guys welded it. If I can rotate the axle, these bits here are obviously been welded by the same guy. So the house kind of was sold. We've literally had 3 days to get out. Got to remove all the stuff in this workshop, which is not going to go to plan very well. So I've been just actually hammering with welding, grinding, whatnot on this chassis. You see the frame's mostly done, and there's still going to be a lot to add. I'm waiting for pedal box from the States, so hopefully that comes before I move, because obviously then that's going to be a bit of a pain in the backside because I can't get it forwarded. But pedal box has got to go on, which is like a power booster and a hydraulic clutch pedal for obviously the BMW lump. And yeah, what else have I got to do? I've got to put on the legs, which are the running board kind of support brackets. They're just going to be welded on. But yeah, frame is mostly done, to be completely honest with you. Done the exhaust mounts, done the prop hoop. Now the prop hoop, you normally do at both ends of where the U-joints are, but because it's such a short prop hoop, I've kind of measured where it would go if one of the ends went, and it will restrict it going through the floor either way. So the central prop hoop's more than fine. It's a very small diameter, so it kind of contains it really well. So yeah, the plan is at the minute is to literally flip this whole frame on its side, weld up all the bits I couldn't get to, and then chuck it in epoxy primer, so I can then roughly chuck the bodywork, body panels, to get the car into storage. Good day, because we're now as a rolling car again. A bad day is because it's going to have to go into storage for a few months. Now, I had put an offer in on a house, it hasn't been accepted. Over in the UK, they're quoting between like, I think it's 3 or 4 months to complete a house, and that's after getting an offer accepted. And we've got no house to go to. So this is going in storage along with all this stuff, just a big shipping container. It's all going to get chucked into. So yeah, the BMW itself is in there nicely. Now, it was well worth doing the extra work I did on the frame, just simply because the original frame was so badly bodged. I mean, the videos speak for themselves, but yeah, it was bad. So now we've got a fully boxed frame front to back, independent front suspension, 4 top 9 rear, 4 linked, with obviously a panhard bar, rather than how the original setup was, which was hairpins. Didn't really like that. But yeah, other than that, it does fit very, very well. So that was obviously original bulkhead, which would come down to here, our firewall, sorry, not bulkhead, which came down to here. It's been modded in the past, boxed in, and I've had to chop that out, so it needs to be boxed in just a bit more. But yeah, basically it does come quite far back into the car. If you had the original tank, I don't think it would fit, but I don't have original tanks to see how deep they are. But inside is very, very, very roomy, which does mean now I am allowed to do my roof chop. So I am probably going to take a few inches. It's only going to be a subtle one, so probably like 2 inch maybe. I will have a look. I mean, I would like a 3 inch roof chop, but I'm not sure how practical that will be for daily driving, because this obviously is the car I'm going to be using full time. So yeah, it's going to be rolled outside because obviously it's very dusty, as you can see. Whoa! To clean it up, ready for transporting it and storing again for it. Probably only to get more dusty. However, it is going with all my household stuff, so I do need to clean it. But yeah, I'll clean it up and then I'll spin the video around so you can see how far I got on with, how it sort of sits, and whether an M57 is a good conversion for you or not. For me, I think personally it is, but I don't think it would go straight into a standard Model A chassis. Just simply because, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that needs chopping and changing. But yeah, let's clean it up and have a mooch around.